quite sure how they came up with that statistic, but that's what they said. And over 30% of the NASDAQ, which is the over-the-counter stock market, value based on federally funded university research. This was as of 2005. The Economist said that this was the most inspired piece of legislation to be enacted in the past half century in the U.S. So statistics. This is a chart from the Autumn's annual survey for 2011, which is the latest survey. And I put it in here only to show that of about 300 research universities and institutions in the U.S., all of Autumn's statistics are derived from only about 130. So it's a less than half of the population, but probably the half that is actually have a lot of activity. For 2011, universities reported 4,900 licenses were signed. More significantly, I think that 670 startup companies were formed just in 2011. And 3,900 startup companies were still in existence from university startups. So there's a lot of, in terms of an impact on the economy, 3,900 new companies, that's employment, and some of them maybe only have 1 or 2 employees, but nonetheless, they are companies and they are contributing to the economy. Patents, if they are a statistic of supporting economic contribution, you can see that patent applications have been increasing slightly in 2011. The pendency of patents, which is the green bars, that's not so much the university statistic as the delays in the patent office. And here's a longer term, 93 to 2005, patent applications in the blue, and issued patents in the blue, and license agreements in the red. Patent applications or patents are tending down a little bit. That may be a reflection of an economy, or it may be a reflection of the incremental contributions to technology that are being developed. I'll mention that again in a minute. Funded research statistics. You can see that research expenditures have gone up consistently since 2002, even by industrial research, even through market downturns. There has been a continual increase. So in 2011, they have a total of, I have to put my glasses on, $60 billion in funded research at universities and hospitals and institutions, but that's the government funding and industrial funding. So I basically said that already. Startups. This is some statistics on the companies. This is becoming the more popular way for universities to commercialize their technology result. You can see that startups formed have been increasing. There is a dip with licenses with equity, but that changes with the economy to some extent. But they have a number of startups that are created by universities, 487 in 2011. They also are interested in where they're located, so they maintain statistics on the location of the startups. But these are the direct contribution to the economy. Most of the university technology is early stage. There's a perception among many universities that startups or small companies will devote more attention to the new technology than large companies will, because it may be the only product they have. Also, it provides an opportunity for university faculty to participate in the commercialization of their technology. There's been an evolving problem in universities with respect to conflicts of interest, with respect to faculty members who want to go out and commercialize their technology while maintaining their faculty positions. And universities have taken different policy positions. Different universities have different views of it. Stanford is perhaps the most liberal in the sense that they encourage all their faculty to go out and do business as well as continue to maintain their faculty positions. The university is also beginning to do more in terms of taking equity in the company as opposed to obtaining royalties or milestone payments. Many of these startup companies and small companies that take licenses from universities don't have a lot of funding, and the funding they do have is from angel investors or VCs who would rather not have their funding paid directly through the small company back to the university. So it's a much better arrangement from the point of view of obtaining funding if the small company's obligations to the university are more in the form of equity, whereas than in a stream of payments. Few of the startup companies, of course, ever become big in the sense of Google or Genentech, but many of them they're created and established for the purpose of being acquired at some point during their development. And that acquisition is when there's a payoff to the university because the equity is then translated into money to the university. So here's licensing income statistics. This total license income, $2 billion in 2011 for all the universities that reported, 186. Running royalties, part of that income is 1.4. Cashed in equity, now that's those companies that are acquired, and the equity is then turned into cash for purposes of the university, $65 million. So you can see that the licensing revenue continues to go up, although you'll notice a dip 2008 to 2009. Thereafter, there's a reflection of the economy, that there's been fewer companies, fewer licensees that are paying. Many companies have gone bankrupt or they've stopped paying on licenses because they couldn't afford it. This is graphically represented here. Not all of the universities benefit. The $2 billion in licensing revenues in 2007, over half of it was just 5 universities. And much of that is in pharmaceutical space. Universities, the New York University one, for example, what they do, the universities will have a license which is generating a stream of revenue and it's projected for some future number of years, and there are companies that will buy that stream of revenue, give a net present value for it, and pay the university a lump sum. So that's what NYU did with Remicade, I believe. It basically got a one-time payment of $650 million for the future licensing revenue for this particular pharmaceutical. So then skews a little bit some of the data because we're actually have some future. And you can see that in this chart here. 2007 was quite a step change from 2006, and some of that was the $650 million that the university, New York University, obtained. This chart was used by BIO, the industry association of pharmaceutical and biotech companies, to demonstrate or try to demonstrate the economic impact of university research. Now, BIO, of course, is focused on the pharmaceutical industry primarily. But they do is they generated this chart, which they assumed a certain royalty rate was being paid on that revenue. That revenue resulted from a certain royalty rate. And so they concluded that in 2007, if you assumed a 2% royalty rate, which is pretty low, that the university licensing contributed $38 billion to the economy. If you assume a 10% royalty rate, of course, it's much smaller, more like $10 billion. But it's certainly a way of measuring or at least estimating the economic impact. So BIO said that over 12 years, university research contributed between $108 and $457 billion to the economy. This is based on basically their assumed royalty rate and the multiplying it. It's skewed by some of the net present value sales of future royalties. 2007, they sold the royalties for the next 10 years, and so that there's another report, Mansfield reported in 1991, that university research over 15 years contributed 11% of the new products and 9% of new processes to the economy. I think it's fair to say that although none of the statistics directly indicate the value of university research to the economy, it's pretty fair to say that the investment in research accelerates the development of new technologies. Economic incentive promotes commercialization. I mean, the fact that before 1980, no one would use the patents because everybody could use the patents. There was no profit motive. After 1980, they were able, because they could get exclusive rights under the technology, and which justified the investment into developing that technology. There is economic incentive, including the economic incentive to the individual inventors, which created the commercialization of the technology. There's a downside to that. The economic incentive to the inventors has had an effect of focusing the researchers, academic researchers, on commercialization because they'll be getting a lot of money. I wonder whether or not it has the effect of reducing the fundamental research that universities do that serve as the foundation. Now, Genentech, for example, is the result of basic research conducted by the University of California in San Francisco. They came up with the first recombinant human insulin. And all of the researchers at UCSF, or most of them, left and joined Genentech to commercialize that product. The question then is, if the commercialization is the goal, who's going to do the fundamental research that led to the first recombinant human insulin? So far, they still continue to have the research done, and they've been successful in it. And it has continued to contribute to the economy. So I think as a result of these statistics, the most we can say, or the least perhaps we can say, is that university research contributes to the economy and will continue to do so. Thanks.
Thank you. And now we'll go for the next presentation, which is the Technology Transfer Office Venture Capital Model in supporting early and late stage technology investment in the Arab world. Our speaker is Mr. Alaya Al-Tayyib, and سيد علايا وخبير ترخيص تقنية مؤسس جمعية رأس المال المخاطر دولة تونس.
Assalamu alaikum. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I'd like really to express my gratitude for CAXT for inviting me for this conference. And also, in fact, to remind you that I've been also invited in 2007 here, where I spoke about the technological development in the world and the challenges in the Arab world, which I think had a very good impact in order really to go forward in our region for the development of technology. I would like also to express my thanks to LES for also inviting me to come here and to speak about the importance of technology transfer offices. In fact, the subject of today is, I believe this is new. It's something in which I'm going really to present a model, how funding is very important, for technology development, but also how technology transfer office can play a very important role to secure the investors in order really to go into the venture of technology. Let me start by the funding. Funding is always key for any technology development, for technology startups, for technology upgrading. In a country, fund is always very important. In funding, there is gaps, very important gaps. Gaps in raising the fund, and gaps also in investing the fund. So in raising the fund, today, not anybody, for any project, can really go for investors, for limited partners, and ask for money. He cannot really get it as, always. There is certain conditions. I'm listing them. First of all, you can go, to limited partners. I'd like really to invest in a fund. They will tell you that we are sorry, there is a world crisis, financial crisis, so it's a world crisis. So we cannot really give you money. We are sorry. Second, I'd like really to invest in MENA, and I'd like really to invest in technology. We are sorry. MENA doesn't have any image in terms of technology. We cannot really give you money for that fund. You can invest in real estate, you can invest in hospitals, and can invest in rocks, but you cannot invest in technology. We apologize, we cannot really give you money. Third, it's too risky. You are really targeting technology, it's too risky. We do not like really to give you money. Of course, they forget that the return is high. But just they remember the fact that investing in technology